Corner crew. Welcome to the very first episode of Culture Corner Wrestling. We decided to start a new little series, show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, dedicated to a lot of people's passions and a lot of people's hobbies and interests. And one of those is professional wrestling. I mean, we all were into it as a kid, and they kind of go hand in hand, hip hop and wrestling. They've had a strong connection. And most of us kids that grew up really poor, that was our real outlet for real entertainment when we only had 3 channels back in the day. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. But we're going to bridge the generational gap. We're going to have every age range, every group represented on this show, because that's what we do at the Culture Corner. We try to bring people together. So without further ado, I want to bring up the panel for this evening. You know them, you love them. If you follow them on social media, you know that they're both solid ass dudes. And I'm proud to have them on the first episode of the Culture Corner Wrestling. So let's bring up Kxng Charisma and Sha-Elemental. What up?
What up?
Welcome to the first episode. Thank you guys for being a part of this, for real, because I know both of you are huge wrestling fans. Definitely. Y'all post about it a lot. Y'all make music about it. So I know it's one of your loves and passions, and we grew up on this shit. So we want to get this popping off, and we want to talk about it. But leading up to preparation of this show, we lost 2 very prominent individuals, not past and present, of wrestling. And we lost Terry Funk and we lost Bray Wyatt. And that was a hit, man, for professional wrestling fans, for real. And so we're gonna start off the show with like what we feel our opinions on their impact of professional wrestling and culture in general. So I want to start off with Kxng Charisma, man. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man. Basically, in our conversations, it was no secret that I had been off of professional wrestling for a long time, right. But I had always still tuned in from time to time for, certain things that really interested me. And one of the things throughout my little hiatus or whatever that interested me was Bray Wyatt. Like, the thing I appreciated about Bray so much is that, obviously everyone knows that a lot of people that are involved in whatever company you invest your time in is like, a lot of it is character aura. A lot of it is character development and story development. And with Bray, it was like he embraced being an aura. And even though it was fictional for most of the time, no matter which character it was, he had a way of being able to make you believe every single character. Every single character he had, it made you feel like it was actually a part of him. So like the aura of building and developing like a character in professional wrestling, like he made you believe that. He made you believe in that, and he was so good at his mic work was so phenomenal. Like you could give him anything, any like analogy or anything to talk about, and he'll go off for 5 to 6 minutes off the top of his head and just murder it. And as for Funk, it was like I think Funk, he paved the way for a lot of different personalities that we saw in professional wrestling from his time till now. Like there's so many people that even some that are probably debatably on the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling that they wouldn't be here without Terry Funk. He like that whole like Western cowboy style or whatever. There's so many people that like kind of were so heavily influenced by his whole demeanor and how he carried his whole style. Like I feel like we don't have the Stone Colds and the things like that without Terry Funk, because he just had such a big influence on valuable like characters that we had throughout professional wrestling. I feel like his influence and his whole style that he had, like that whole like cowboy badass kind of image or whatever, it starts with Terry Funk in professional wrestling. I feel like so.
And he did it for years, man. He did it for years, decades.
Reinvented himself numerous times. Pretty much paved the way for all the hardcore stuff you see now. And he was doing that at like 6 years old.
Yeah,
it's
he
crazy.
did it until he couldn't do it anymore, he felt like.
Man, was an animal.
Him and Cactus. really kicked it off for hardcore wrestling for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
If you haven't seen their Japanese matches, go out and watch them.
No, great stuff. He did it until he couldn't do it anymore, and even when he couldn't do it anymore, he still was better than a lot of guys that are half his age.
Oh yeah.
So
because he had in his blood, the whole family, the Funk family.
Yeah, no, really he was born to wrestle. He was born to wrestle.
Wrestling. Yeah, they pioneered that shit for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And he did it all. He was good in the ring. He could get on the mic and talk. He could tell a story in the ring and outside of the ring. And I think one thing about Bray Wyatt too, I think, is he was just a masterful storyteller. Like, you could listen to one of his promos, and at the end of it, you might not even know what the point of it was, but you were entertained the entire way, and you wanted to see the next one.
There didn't have to be a point.
Right, because he was just that good.
Yeah.
He was an orator. Like, that guy was so good at speaking. It's insane. And they honestly probably underutilized him a lot, even though they did.
Absolutely.
They definitely did. They underutilized the cult leader character for sure. When they let John Cena, when they let John Cena kill him there, man, that was it. That character started getting rocky, and it's because Vince didn't have an idea what to do with him. He didn't let him off the leash and just let him run.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And Bray was so good, you didn't have to have an idea as to what to do with him. He was so good, you kind of just had to let him do it for himself.
Exactly.
And he could have. I don't think Vince saw that in him, though, as much as everybody else did.
Right. When he came back with the Firefly Funhouse, when he was doing that first one I saw, I'm like, all right, what's going to happen here? I didn't know that it was going to turn into what it did, be as entertaining as it was. But it was one of those things like, oh, man, is this going to go down the tubes fast? This could be a total miss. But, of course, he hit it out the park because that's what he did.
Until Vince. Anyway.
Yeah, another guy that had wrestling in his blood, So, but definitely, he's definitely going to be.
His godfather is Barry Windham. His dad is Mike Rotunda, IRS. Like, come on, like
the whole family, man. I got a question for both of you. Do you think it would be wise for the WWE to try to carry on the Uncle Howdy character with Bo Dallas with Bray gone? Because I've been hearing rumors that they might try to do something like that.
I think it would be cool if they.
Which one you want to go first?
If they do it right, it can be good. But I do think you got to involve Alexa Bliss a little bit in that too. Just with the carry.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I think you still have to include Alexa Bliss. Obviously, she's in the middle of a pregnancy. Yeah. Right. Obviously, Alexa Bliss is in the middle of a pregnancy. Yeah, and I think it's a time thing too. Like, obviously, it couldn't be immediate. That would obviously have to be a while. And if they had to include Alexa Bliss, obviously they would have to wait another 6 to 8 months anyway because she's pregnant and she's having a kid. But so I think it could be a good idea. It's just I don't necessarily know if I fully. It is a 50-50 ball. Like, it's either they're gonna really do it and get it right, or it might fall flat on its face because it's just not the same.
Yeah, without him, it might not be the same. And what I want to know is, in an alternate universe, there's a universe where they did what they originally planned to do when they brought him back with the Wyatt Six. I don't know if you remember that stuff. All the hits and all that stuff. And basically, from what I was reading on dirt sheets, so take this with a grain of salt, obviously, but at one point, it was supposed to be like he was going to bring the puppets, basically make them real people, essentially, kind of like the Uncle Howdy character. One of them was actually going to be Eric Young, which I'm a huge fan of that guy. That guy got the roughest deal when they brought him from NXT to the main roster. Like, Sanity was a dope faction, ill character. And for whatever reason, they were just like, nah. And I think what they could have done with that could have been amazing, because they probably would have brought Eric Redbeard back, Eric Rowan. They would have had Eric Young involved, and if you guys are familiar with Eric Young and his character work over the years, I mean, you could see how he would easily fit into like a Bray Wyatt.
He'd fit right in.
Perfect. So I mean, I think that was a missed opportunity, but obviously, now it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't. And you kind of chalk that up to knowing that they play their favorites. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, the creatives, in wrestling entertainment in general. Like the creatives, they don't necessarily see what like the consumer sees, and they kind of just have their favorites, or maybe the personal relationships behind closed doors and in the locker room aren't that great, so they kind of give them a bad deal based off of like how they actually feel about these guys backstage. We've seen it happen with some of the greats like ever, and we've had it with some guys that were underappreciated. Like I saw TikTok the other day. It was like, oh, I'm starting professional wrestling from like the 1930s. What should I know from here going forward? And like the top comment was like, "Don't get attached to Zack Ryder" or something like that. And it was like, it's like the perfect example. It's like, obviously you never know. They drop a ball like people like that because they obviously play their favorites sometimes from the back. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, in some cases you can see why. Because when you have somebody who's professional, reliable, does what they're asked to do, doesn't, question every little thing, you can see why these things happen, company guys and stuff like that. But at the same time, you follow the money. So regardless of how you feel about some people, like, if they're hot, go with it. That's one thing that kills me about WWE sometimes.
It's happening with LA Knight right now. Vince,
I was just about to say that.
He wasn't. The reports were, obviously this is just like, the wrestling community is a lot of speculation and a lot of rumor in terms of it's not like a baseball, hockey, football, basketball where it's a lot of it ends up being true out of that. A lot of it is actually just speculation. But they were like, listen, Vince wasn't sold on LA Knight until everybody else in the world was, and he had the top selling t-shirt, still does right now, for the last 3 months, and nobody knew why. He wasn't main eventing anything. He didn't have a belt. He literally was just coming out, dressing how he does, and he could talk on the mic. And then that's when they were like, all right, we're going to have to buy into this guy. It literally didn't happen until now.
I can't believe it took long. He was nice back in the day in Impact. Like
which is why it didn't make any sense. But
yeah, they totally dropped the ball not making him miss the Money in the Bank. They really did. I think that's one of their biggest missteps this year.
No, and the worst part about it is they teased the damn thing.
I know.
And the last 45 seconds of the match, I'm half drunk in my living room with my sister going nuts, like he's gonna do it. This is it. And then fucking giant priest comes through and just ruins every goddamn thing.
Right.
God, yeah. Bad.
It was a total misstep on their part. Total misstep.
I was like, man.
Circling back to Brave and Terry, man, it's a shame. I mean, we lost a lot of great wrestlers this year already, and we do every year. It's a kind of an odd thing. There's no, and it's kind of another thing that connects it with hip hop is that there's so many greats that die young. It's a wild thing,
and suddenly too,
right?
And suddenly, you know what I mean?
Right. It's like that's it. You don't see that in any other professional sport or genre of music. You really don't. So, but I want to move on to our next topic, and it's a lot of different stories, a lot of things circling around. It started what, a year and a half ago. CM Punk, man, CM Punk has been doing damage over at AEW.
Just coming in, stepping on toes.
I respect it because he is who he is, but I do think that his ego is a little beyond his ring skill at the moment.
So, I mean, maybe a little bit, but I personally, I look at this, two things that stick out to me big time in this. The first thing is these type of things have been going on in professional wrestling since day one. They never stopped happening. They happen in every single company. The only difference is the coverage, the internet coverage, and everybody being on top of it, and all the talk, the backdoor information getting out, all that stuff is just like, it's ridiculous. So to me, I don't really see the big deal about it, where other people are like, oh my God, he's going to ruin this and ruin that. It's like, listen, if Hulk Hogan didn't do it in back in the day with his like clauses in his contract that he gets to decide when he wins and losses and things like that, like you can't tell me that
it's very selective. I think like obviously with people like Hogan, the Hulkamaniacs are like, they're all over it. That's a good example because it's just like, oh well, Hulk did this for the company, but he was the spoiled brat act that got to do whatever the hell he wanted and determine everything. And but at the end of the day, some people aren't. I'm not necessarily mad at it because he was so important to the sport. And, obviously I don't necessarily put Punk I think where Hogan is. I enjoy Punk more than I would have enjoyed Hogan, I think, back in the day.
Absolutely. But big picture.
But yeah, most definitely. And Punk came in already having basically cemented a legacy to some degree. So I mean, he's older now too. So obviously he feels as if like, I walk in here, I'm supposed to be respected as this, that, and the third. I had feuds with some of the GOATs already in another company that's still probably bigger than this one. So there's nothing people can say to me. And we got to factor in at the end of the day that this isn't like contrary to who he's been throughout his entire professional career.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not in the slightest. Like, he's the dude that comes in and he steps on toes. He's come in and he's, had some very intense run-ins with some of the biggest baby faces ever, and he's coming and just ruined shit. Like, imagine being a 9-year-old kid and like he's beating Jeff Hardy, who was the top baby face in the company at the time. It's been basically who he's been throughout his entire career in terms of like just coming in and just ruining shit. So I'm not mad at it, but it does kind of carry over into like actually being in his real life. So I feel like he's kind of disrupting. The fans probably feel like he's disrupting like momentum for up and comers a little bit.
Right.
I can see that. But I mean, like the other thing too is he's not in charge of the company. That's Tony Khan. Right. So the way I'm seeing it is Tony Khan really needs to start putting his foot down. And like that whole thing that happened with Jack Perry and CM Punk, if you read about it, Jack Perry's being a little bitch and a spoiled little bitch because they were like, nah, you can't use real glass because you're gonna fuck yourself up, and then we could get sued, something bad could happen, except common.
No, and Punk being a professional was like, dude, listen, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. I'm very, very familiar with these kinds of incidents. I'm telling you that this isn't necessarily the safest option. And Punk's pushing, how old is he now? He's in his late 40s, you think?
Like 42.
42.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, but as a professional wrestler, that 40-plus-year-old body is all beaten up from experiences like that. So he's probably like, dude, listen, this is the safest option. I don't necessarily know if I agree with it. And Jack Perry got all in his feelings about it. And he's like, dude, you can take it whatever way you want. I'm looking out for you.
Mm-hmm. Then it escalates to what happened at All In, and it was right before CM Punk and Samoa Joe. So that's not the best headspace to have a guy go out and wrestle a match to open up the biggest paid attendance record or whatever they're calling it. Yeah. So Jack Perry should have just shut the fuck up and known his place in the company. Like, dude, you're a mid-carder. Sit down. Sit down.
Yeah, and he's not even like one of the faces of the company any goddamn way.
He's so trash. He's so trash. Like, the dude has no range. Considering who his dad was and how he was an actor, I'm like, yo, this dude has like no charisma whatsoever. He's a black hole. Like, it's just like, I find nothing that he said convinces me that he even believes what he said.
He's just there, bro. It's not really like he's just one of the guys that you're just like, you hear he's wrestling. From what I take, you hear he's wrestling and he's not really. It's like an afterthought. You know what I mean?
Pretty much. Yeah. There's no real match that you can think about that says, let's the greatest Jack Perry match, the greatest Jungle Boy match.
There's not a signature match like there is with most of them.
The only thing I can think of is the Pillars match with MJF, Guevara, and Allen, but that's because of those three guys. It wasn't because of him. He was the charisma black hole of that foursome. And I don't even understand why they're putting him as a pillar. Britt Baker earns his spot easy. But yeah, Punk's gonna do some damage. They're saying he technically told him that he was quitting. He wasn't coming back because they suspended him for
Andy
slapping the kid around a little bit.
Andy, I guess he was like having it out with Tony Khan too. Like, yo, like, what the fuck? Like,
no, and he's very slick too, because when he was like, when his comeback was basically like getting all prepared and everything, people knew he was gonna come back. He was still doing like shady shit, like showing up to random SmackDowns, backstage, kicking it in WWE, like probably mending some bridges, maybe, if I had to take a guess, or maybe just being there out of curiosity, visiting old friends, whatever the case might have been. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not in the locker room, but if you're planning your return with like another company and you're like the competition, you're chilling backstage. So I can see why he rubs people off with that a little bit. So, but he probably is like, listen, if you guys want to suspend me, fuck, I don't need this shit. I mean,
right. Yeah,
like, I'm so valuable to the wrestling community that like I can literally do this anywhere.
He doesn't.
That's probably how he feels.
He really doesn't even have to wrestle. If he decided to start a podcast, it would be in the top 3 wrestling podcasts the first week.
I don't. I think top 3 is like just lowballing it. I think he'd have the biggest podcast right now.
Jim Cornette's number 1 right now, I believe, and people. That's a
Jim
good.
Cornette,
I can actually sit there and bear through the whole thing. Yeah, it's a damn good wrestling podcast.
I love Jim Cornette. I don't always agree with him, but he just makes me laugh constantly. Like the way when he shits on somebody, it's so entertaining. I love it.
It's
very
it's very passionate.
I'm like, yep. Love that guy.
Another guy that's been doing it for decades, and he knows more about wrestling than any of these kids out there that are flipping around. The flippy doodah like the Bucks, man. I can't with the young Bucks, and I can understand why CM Punk wants to punch them both in the face, bro. I
don't understand that style of wrestling. Just like because the wrestling I grew up loving was more like suspension of disbelief. They almost got it to a point where you're like, is this real? But when you see somebody like 10 people crowd up outside the ring, and then one dude's doing like a triple handspring backflip off the top rope, like, and they just stand there and watch and catch them. It's like, come on. Like,
I think what's worse than that is any of the Tower of Doom spots. They're the worst when they're setting up for something big with 5 to 8 guys on the top rope. And
my God.
They're assisting each other, and they're all. It's like, come on, man. You just took 5 minutes of time for nothing.
It never looks rehearsed. It looks like they're trying to just build it on the spot. Like, it never looks right. It literally looks as if like they're doing a cheer routine, and they're just like, remember you got to wrap your leg around my leg, and I gotta. I'm like, this looks like they practiced this maybe once in rehearsals and just said, fuck it, let's just hope it goes well.
Right, or they saw it done. They said,
it takes long. It takes long. You can have a whole commercial break by the time that they're done, like formatting the spot. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's one of CM Punk's big gripes about the company is there's way too much of that. And he's right. You know, there's really certain parts of AEW that are unbearable to watch. Some of the characters are unbearable, and so I think he does have a lot of control, especially in Collision. Because that's basically they gave him that show so he could stay away from Omega and the Bucks and all that, and still
probably become the best professional wrestling show out, like as far as the wrestling is concerned.
Right. So I think if he had more of a backstage role, was almost kind of like a part timer, they'd be better off right now. Not I don't think he should be on TV every week going on, because then all this bad shit happens behind the scenes because all these kids getting their feelings because. He is the top draw. He is besides MJF, he's the main dude in that company. They're number 1 and number 2. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
MJF is like that guy's gold.
He's amazing.
Everything that dude does, it's like I don't know what more.
And what I like about MJF is he really. I'm not sure I've seen someone as invested in the kayfabe content than him in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
He's in character. At the grocery store talking to kids. He's in like, is it a little excessive? Maybe, sure, but from an entertainment standpoint, I don't really care. Like, he could be shooting hoops with random dudes running threes at the park, and he's still talking to them the exact same way.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love it because it's reminiscent of a lot of guys that did the same thing in the wrestling I grew up loving. You know what I mean? They kept the persona no matter where they went. In press interviews, kids are coming up to him, signing autographs. He's cursing out kids. It's a little excessive, of course, but like I love how serious. It's a testament to how serious he takes it and how much he loves the craft. He talks shit about like Tony Khan. Like he probably doesn't mean it. He talks about leaving all the time. He's always like, "Yeah, I'm gonna leave you for Triple H in WWE. I'm gonna do this," and they kind of just brush it off. But it's really like how passionate and how serious he takes it, and I love it.
And absolutely. It's going to end up being like AEW's Sting, basically, in the end. When you think about one person to associate with the company, at this point, he's on track to be that guy for AEW.
Absolutely.
6 months ago, he was their biggest heel, and today he's their biggest babyface.
Yep.
So that just goes to show he can do anything.
Without changing either.
Right.
He's able to make himself. He's able to carry himself as a babyface with like the aura and attitude of a heel. Like he's able to carry like heel charisma and heel energy, but make it likable to the point where he can carry as a babyface as well.
Right.
And like there's not that many guys that are able to do that as well.
Nope, Stone Cold, The Rock. It's a stretch to name a lot of other people. It's like
Flair did it. Flair carried both.
But he was always a heel, though, for the most part. Like I don't think he had many babyface runs, not in like the 80s and stuff like that. Only like 2000
NWO times he was a babyface.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't switch up through most of the that 83-week run, and when they started to fail, as soon as they started to fail out, though, he was out of there most of the time. So
yeah, and he was beefing with Bishop.
Would you guys, obviously barring, this is obviously debatable, but if you want to compare like Hustle, Loyalty, Respect Cena versus Dr. Thugonomics Cena, would you say he was able to carry both as well? I know one was obviously a lot more long-lived than the other, but that's just a question I have for the both of you.
I personally live right down the street from where that dude's from. So that whole Thugonomics thing, I was like, yo, dog, you live in the boonies, like in a small ass town in West Newbury, Massachusetts. There's nothing thug about you. Like you can rap if you want. You don't have to be a thug and rap.
That's cool.
And for me at the time too, I'm like, I'm a white rapper. I was like, yo, is this dude mocking me right now? Like, what is this? I felt like he was always making fun of me or some shit. I'm like, yo, is it he that doesn't like me or is it Vince? I'm confused. I don't know. I hated that character, but the Hustle, Loyalty, Respect character was definitely better.
I'm saying that character was hit or miss, but there are a lot of people that did like it though for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate it. I would boo the crap out every time. Boo. If I'm there, I'm booing him. Same thing with Roman Reigns.
Yeah,
but at a certain point, you got to respect. Yeah, but you got to respect it after a little while. You know what I mean? Because you're like, all right, he's still around, still doing it. Obviously, he's doing something right. And he's a great actor. I love him in acting. Way better than ever in wrestling.
Yeah.
Me personally, I thought it was cringy as fuck, man. I just same as you. It's like, if you're a white dude that's into hip hop, it's like, are you making fun of me? Or like you said, is Vince is that how they see the hip hop, the white hip hop fan? Because they do try to mirror life, and it's like, and Cena rode with it because he knew just to shut his mouth and do his job. You know what I mean? But he should have, because he grew up in the culture, he should have put his foot down and made it a little less cringy. You know what I mean? He should have had, and Vince should have let him really take the reins, just like he should have let Bray take the reins. He should have trusted him a little bit more at the beginning, but he obviously didn't until the hustle, loyalty, respect character.
Yeah, I think that's him. I think that is him more like in his natural like personality as the hustle, loyalty, respect character. I think it's more of who he was. So, but once he not put his foot down, but once he decided to embrace that, is really when he took off. For me, it's really when he took off. Like as a kid, Dr. Thugonomics was entertaining because I was just like, I didn't really necessarily know any better. I was 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old.
Yeah.
But then later in life, I'm like, nah, this is him in his natural element. I think I respect this more because it's more of who he is. And I feel like his mic work was more polished because it was less about just like saying, it was more about like dissecting guys rather than just saying the most like shock value thing you could say as like the white rapper dude who's just coming to like be a pain in the ass. It was more like, I'm going to break you down and I'm going to bring you down to size and I'm going to just dissect everything that, like, I'm going to make it personal with you and I'm going to make you feel it. And that's why I respected it later on more. Because that little, like, middle part of Cena, I wasn't big, but it was that and then, like, towards, like, when he started really embracing, like, the hustle, loyalty, respect, like, fat thing. So I liked that later on in life more.
Cena is one of those wrestlers to me that, like, I respect what he's done. Yeah. I get it. I get why people are big fans of his, but I'm just not. I just never got on the Cena train. And like you said, he's a hell of an actor, and he's got some good shit coming up in the acting world. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But for him to if he came back for his last match or whatever, it's like okay.
Well, he'll be back. He'll be back this Friday and for 7
Yeah, he's
SmackDowns.
back for like 8 weeks or something.
Yeah, he's back for 8 weeks. Yeah.
So they might actually get a storyline out of him now, because the last few times he came back, it was like so cookie cutter. It was like he came in with somebody, lost.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So.
At least he's losing now, though. He's willing to put.
They teased the Grayson Waller thing at Money in the Bank, so obviously he'll be on SmackDown. Grayson Waller's on SmackDown, so they might continue to build on that, especially because Waller has yet to get his first win on the main roster. They kind of give him his own show, and he hasn't even won his own which I think is entertaining, personally. Unpopular opinion. I'm not mad at the Grayson Waller effect. I actually like Grayson Waller. I'm just saying, to have the dude has his own show and doesn't even have, like, it's almost every week he has the show and he doesn't even have his first win on the main roster yet.
Because usually you establish a character and then they give you a show.
Right.
I
think didn't they have it?
Even
I think they did. Yeah.
They did.
So they tried to carry over to the main roster but a lot of people don't follow. Like I personally don't follow all of NXT. I follow a couple of things and that's it. And I don't never watch the whole NXT. It's not what it was. It was back in 3-4 years ago. It was great.
It was so good.
It's fallen off way since Vince took it over and fucked with it.
And the people they bring to the main roster, like, obviously that we know that in terms of the brand split, the draft can be a joke. Guys appear on both shows all the time. Like LA Knight's on Monday Night Raw, but he's also on SmackDown. He's feuding with The Miz on Raw right now, but he was drafted to SmackDown. They draft these people from NXT, and it takes them forever to even do anything. Like they drafted that chick, Indy Hartwell, and her biggest moment right now is a squash to Rhea Ripley in the Raquel Rodriguez feud. And it's like, what the hell's going on? What was the point of that? Now they brought Carmelo Hayes up to go with Finn Balor, take an L to him. So I'm like, was it a waste? Maybe. They brought Grayson Waller up, and that's fine. They gave him his own show. That's cool. But I'm like, you gave him his own show, and he doesn't even have his first win on the main roster yet.
Right. They do things backwards.
And he's eating pins to established people. He ate a pin to Ray last week. I think they had like the United States champion like tournament or whatever, and he took a pin. He got the Edge rub, which is fine. I'm cool with that. Considering it was, Edge's like first match back or whatever, fine, I guess. But it's like you're having established people. Like he's eating a pin to established people that don't need the win.
Right.
You could have had him beat Edge, or
why don't they use jobbers like that anymore? That's what they used to. You remember back in the day, you'd watch like Superstars on a Saturday or something, right? And you would see like an established star, and they would get wins by beating these no-name dudes, independent wrestlers off the street. But they don't do that no more. They feed their own future stars to the current stars and then kill their momentum. I just don't understand that at all.
I'm like, listen, if they have that much faith in Grayson Waller, I'm fine with that. Because I do actually find him entertaining. As weird as it is, I don't know what it is about him. I actually do find him entertaining. Maybe it's his accent or some shit. I don't know. But
he's Australian, right?
Yeah, he's Australian, yeah. And I'm just like, you're having him eat pins to people that are in their mid-40s that are Hall of Famers already. I'm like, you had him eat pins to two dudes that are in the Hall of Fame. One that has a belt on right now, and he's almost 50 in Ray. So I'm like, if you're going to have him have his own show, have him have a few good wins first, because I think that I just don't agree with him having his own show every week if they're not going to have him have some good wins first. You mean?
Just a sec, man. Yeah, your camera's going dark. Just to let you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's because, I'm trying to get some light from the window, but hold on.
But, yeah, they kind of, they do things backwards in the WWE. We all know that. They've done that for years. And I think they actually think that making them eat these pins and lose to these big established dudes is getting this guy over. And it
doesn't always work that way. No.
Right. It doesn't. And but I really do think that they think that it's working for them. And if they keep going, he's going to be buried in a month. No one's going to remember who he is because they're just going to say, "Oh, this guy, he's not selling any T-shirts. He's not, the ratings not popping. Let's move on." And you know that.
Which is why
Triple H has some fits in him, so he'll do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is why I'm hoping like the Money in the Bank segment with Grayson Waller and with Johnson. I'm hoping they build on that with bringing Cena back because at least maybe he can give the guy something. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we definitely will.
But there's multiple people they could do that with. Not to control. There's multiple people they could do that with. It could be LA Knight, even though he's got the Miz going on right now. It could be multiple people he has that with.
Yeah, there's a lot. They have a huge roster, so they have a ton of talent on their roster. They're not lacking to throw him in a feud with somebody that he can actually get some wins over. Well, you mentioned Roman Reigns earlier. I want to move on to that topic. The Bloodline. They have jumped the shark, and I don't think they know how they're going to end this because I think they were trying to bank on getting The Rock for WrestleMania. I really do. I really think they were going to have The Rock come in at the Royal Rumble, disrupt something, or come in at the end and challenge him for the head of the table. And I think that was their plan, but who knows what Rock wants to do. So they just threw whatever they could at the wall and see what stuck. But I think they really blew this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Cody probably should have won at WrestleMania.
Definitely.
And what I would like to see this year at WrestleMania is a rematch of that. It's just how do we get there? It's just how do we get there? Because that's still a few months out. So it's like,
right?
It's April. So
it's in April,
months. Like they're gonna have to do a lot to keep.
We have like 4 months until the Rumble. We have like 5 months until Chamber. So it's definitely you definitely have options, but to get the timeline to get to those options, how you're building that up is still what's in question. I feel like.
Right. I think they're gonna give him the Rumble, and I think they're gonna give the Chamber to LA Knight. So that's what they should, or vice versa. That's what they should do.
I think
that's their options.
I think they're gonna give Gunther the Rumble.
It's possible.
That's a part.
I think they're gonna give.
He might drop it to Chad, so it's definitely a possibility. I think that's the direction they're going with that. Is they're gonna have him break Honky Tonk's record, and a week or two later he'll drop it to Gable and move on. So that's definitely an option.
I think they, and I do too. I think they see Gunther as like a. I think they see him as a world champion rather than a mid card champion.
Right. Absolutely.
At some point. So now Gunther probably won't go after Roman. That'll probably be a different thing. But if he was, or if whoever Seth loses to before, if they plan on having him lose before that, I don't necessarily know if they do. I think they plan on giving Seth what he's deserved because he's been the workhorse of the company. 1,000%. Like I don't know. I don't think he should have a reign like Roman's had, but I definitely think being the workhorse of the company, he definitely deserves to have
give him
a solid 10 to 12 month reign. I say he's earned that.
Especially after eating all those losses to Cody like that in a row. Like
like.
And I'm not even a fan of the guy, but like just the fact he did that, and we know in real life they don't even like each other that much at all.
No.
And he was still willing to be professional and do that. And like, I'm not always a fan of his character work, but he is good in the ring. I hate his finisher though. The stomp is trash.
Oh no, hot garbage. But I don't even think he likes it. Because I feel like with his work in the ring and how versatile he is and how many different styles he can wrestle with, I'm like, we can't come up with something better for this fucking guy.
Right.
Yeah, and something that looks so contrived and fake. Like,
the way people sell it is awful. Not one person was able to sell it well. I think everybody sells it over. It's overdone. It's not really. I think he's too good in the ring. We have to think of something better for this fucking guy. It really bothers me too.
If he modified the setup, if it was sort of like the RKO and could come
out of nowhere
at any time when somebody was down, that would be a totally different thing. Then I think it'd have a little more impact.
And with the RKO, it's a lot simpler. You can do it from different angles. And you can do it from different parts of the ring. You can do it off the top rope. You can do it off the creative. Yeah, it's not. They just kind of threw that at him.
Seth would be the guy to do it though, because he is so creative in the ring. He really is. He's one of their top 3 in ring talents right now. He has to.
Yeah,
be.
no, for sure. I think
hands
so.
down. And he was the perfect guy to put over Cody those matches to get him back into the company and get people back on board. So
it makes perfect sense to have him do.
Who else could have they done with Cody coming back in? Like really, they would have to go straight. They would have to go straight to Roman, and then there'd be no build up for it and so on.
Yeah.
But I definitely think Cody's taking it at WrestleMania though. If they can't get The Rock, if they get The Rock with that, is the Screen Actors strike still going? I'm not even sure.
Yes. Writers and screen actors are still striking.
Yeah. So it's like he'd be stupid not to if they backed up $50 million and said, "Here you go, sir. Please grace us with your presence for 25 minutes."
It's funny you brought up the strike too, because aren't the writers in WWE technically TV writers as well? How come they're not on strike? Because they're contractors?
Maybe because they're independent contractors and they still do that. And they're not in the Writers Guild. Maybe there's a loophole. Dude, you know Vince is gonna find a way around any business situation to benefit him.
Oh my God! Yes, come on. They had him dead to rights last year. Back.
Yeah.
Right.
More power than ever.
Right. Still controlling the company. I really don't think he has that much creative control. Maybe he has a say in certain things and his favorites and who he wants. I don't think it's like what it was. Like
I don't think it's as encompassing as it was, but he definitely has a huge influence. You can tell just from the way things changed when he came back almost immediately. It's definitely more like maybe a 60-70% as opposed to 100% like it used to be.
Right. Well, they had the issue with it was like 3 Monday Night Raws in a row where there was last second changes. There was a ton of things that were supposed to go on that got cut. There was one like Bloodline segment that was like double the amount of time, so they had to like cut the women's match like mad short. But it was a triple threat with I think Charlotte, Bianca, and Asuka or something like the teaser of it and like Io Sky. So there was definitely the reports of like before Raw tonight, Triple H is kind of a meeting with Vince like, dude, stop changing my fucking show. Right. But what now? That meeting could have lasted 30 seconds, and he's like, "Get off my dick! I'm gonna do what I want. This is my company. I don't give a fuck." And they probably were like, "Okay, I guess, sure." But like, I feel like there definitely was conversation taking place because with those rapid changes, they did kind of calm down on certain things. They did more necessary cuts rather than like just having the Bloodline go for almost an hour. SmackDown's a 2-hour show. They took up almost an hour on time, and Trips was like, "Dude, this is ridiculous. I mean, come on." But
it's a little wild. It was getting wild. They peaked at Sammy. I think they definitely peaked at Sammy as a whole storyline, and it just started tumbling downhill. And then it really jumped the shark with Cody, and then it even jumped it further with
the Usos.
Yeah, that whole
it makes no sense. It literally contradicts what they were doing at the beginning of the storyline.
Right, and that's a Vince thing. That's a Vince change. Something happened, and he was like, "Yeah, pal, let's do this." And so they decided to make that change, which made no sense, and it derailed the whole damn story. Now Roman, where is he? You never see the guy anymore. So we'll see what happens.
And it's. I feel like the one thing we can take from the Bloodline story, jumping the shark, is this little hiatus they're on. It's like, okay, we do need like. We kind of started to feel the fatigue of that, especially after SummerSlam. Jimmy turned on Jay and then made like an excuse for it the next week on SmackDown. That's whatever, but I'm like, now that we haven't seen any of them in 2 weeks except for Paul Heyman, now that we haven't seen them, it's like, okay, there is a timeline that they probably won't be on TV, any of them. I know Jimmy's back next week, but it's just supposed to be Jimmy. Jay, his contract was actually up in August, so I'm sure they're probably just reworking that. Yeah, right, exactly.
He ain't going nowhere.
Right.
No, he's not.
That was all story.
He's there for life.
Yeah,
I laugh. People are like, is he going to AEW? I'm like, you don't know nothing about WWE contracts, do you? 90 days, man. 90 days.
They're doing it with Edge right now. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, he even said, he's like, I got an extension in my inbox for right now as an offer. And
now, would I love to see him go to AEW? I would, just for the matchups.
Yeah.
Get those matches out of the way and then retire again.
Right. You know, you got Christian over there, so I'm sure he'd want to, dabble into that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So
Get the Hardys with their history.
right.
Although they're both so beat up at this point, it's like
Yeah. I mean,
they're toast. Both of
painful.
them are toast. But I think
they're
I
done.
think the Better Than You Bebe story has overtaken the Bloodline story as the hottest story in wrestling right now for sure.
I think so. And they were able to extend that without jumping the shark at all.
Exactly. And there's like no ending in sight for that either, because there's so many ways they could go with it. So many ways. I think they should definitely keep this momentum with the babyface MJF for at least another 3 to 6 months before they really end that, depending on if he's serious about leaving. Who knows? I don't think he will leave AEW.
No,
who knows, man? If WWE comes crazy with that contract,
that's the thing. The money can talk.
They do.
And tell him that he can do what he wants. Then we'll see. But he'll have to definitely tone it down a bit because of the whole PG rating. But they should. I heard they were going to PG-14 soon, but it hasn't happened. So, depending on what happens with that. But I think MJF and Adam Cole are telling the best story right now, for sure.
I mean, the way it's set up now is like we're waiting for that inevitable turn, but we don't know who it's going to be at this point. First, we were like, oh, it's got to be MJF. It's obviously going to be MJF. Right. But all the little things they've been sprinkling in, the little hints here and there, have been the opposite. Like, oh, it's probably going to be Cole. But then when it comes down to it, they're both like, nah, you're my boy. And so they can definitely do this a little bit longer. Don't drag it out too long, but there's definitely options for sure.
Yeah. With the Bloodline, it's like there's no definitive, like, obvious end.
Right.
We know, like, for all we know, they could be back there talking about Roman being a champion for another couple years, and we just won't know.
Right.
Like, I'm cool with them extending it, obviously, until Mania in Philly. But beyond that, I'm like, dude, I mean, I'm not even sure Roman wants to be champion beyond that.
No.
Obviously, he'll have the Hollywood options and things like that. I'm sure that he wants to explore, but I'm like, past Mania 40 in Philly, like this upcoming April, I'll be in the building, by the way. Hopefully, like, where do they go after that? We're gonna have this dude be champion. Beyond that, I can't see it.
There's only two roads, and one of them's Cody, and the other one's The Rock. That's it. Because they've explored all the roads of that storyline, and they've killed them all.
Yeah. Now, what they can do is they can have him drop the title and have another babyface run with Roman post losing the title, and that's fine. I just know that his best work has been this Bloodline work as a heel.
Easily.
So, easily, not even close. And I know that it took so long, like, them trying to force him as a babyface on the fans didn't go well for the first couple years of his career at all. It actually went pretty hard. It was to the point where in Philly they were booing him at the Rumble, talking about this is awful. Like, that's how bad it was that they were trying to force the Roman babyface thing down people's throats for the first couple years. And then obviously the leukemia thing happened. He came back, won the title as a heel, and then the Bloodline story started from there. And it's been brilliant work, but it's also exhausted work. You mean? Yeah. So I could see maybe him dropping the title at 40 to someone like Cody, or even if it's like a head of the table thing with The Rock. I could see another potential babyface run after that. Now, will it be good work? I don't know.
If he does a sort of the Cena thing and drops to the mid card and tries to build up the U.S. title or build up another secondary title, or become a tag team and build up the tag team title separate from the Usos and the normal teams, maybe that would work, because it would like humble himself a little bit after the whole acknowledge me deal for years.
And he'll be able to work on, the part-time schedule he's already on, and it still be effective. But then again, we just don't know if he'll thrive in that, because all that we know for the past 3 to 4 years is him being the dominant force as a heel in the Bloodline. That's all we've known, and it's like you said, it's clearly been his best work, not even close.
We try to forget about the 8 years or so before that. So It was Ben.
We tried to. I mean, think about it though. His legacy is this last 3 years of work. Because if you take his first 6 years of his career or whatever, there's no way is this dude a Hall of Fame level. No way. Absolutely not. It wasn't working. The fans didn't love it. It didn't stick.
They inducted the Shield as a group. Yes,
on paper,
that, but him alone, no.
But on paper, look at the stats. He has Hall of Fame stats.
He does. He does. But I'm saying, like, what cemented that, he's a Hall of Famer, no question now, obviously.
Especially after that.
Yeah, but I'm saying without the bloodline heel work and the storyline of the past 3 years, I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm sure now. But I'm just not sure of the 6 or 7 years before that's the case.
But really, the WWE will put in just about anybody.
They will, and it's really nosy.
Right. Yeah, they pick everybody, anybody. So, fellas, this has been a good talk. Great episode to start this off for sure. I appreciate both of you guys. We're going to keep this going as much as we possibly can because, like we said at the beginning of the show, man, wrestling is a hobby and a passion and an interest for a lot of people, and a lot of people in this group. We get a lot of interest going on in some of the chats that we have and some of the talks that we have throughout the group and throughout other social media. So I just want to keep this going. I appreciate both of you for coming on the first episode. I know you guys are going to try to make it a common thing to be on with us, but I want to get other group members involved. I got some other people we've talked to, and we're going to lead up to some episodes. We don't know how often we're going to air, but might be once every 2 weeks, might be once every 3. We don't know yet, but we're going to figure that out. And again, man, I appreciate both of you for coming on, and got to give a shout out to the Corner crew, man. Shout out to everybody watching. And yeah, Culture Corner Wrestling, episode 1 in the books.
Oh yeah, yo!
I can't wait. Can't wait to do this again.
Oh yeah, thank you, fellas. Thank you.
For sure.
Shout out to everybody watching. Go sub to that YouTube channel. You already know what to do. We got the Hip Hop Happy Hour podcast. We got the Masters of the Gamersverse podcast. We got a lot of good shit coming on. So y'all already know. Tune in with us, man. Peace out.
Peace, y'all.